Welcome back from the desk of low. I have with me a very, very special guest to the show. He's a two-time Grammy Award winning. He's a creator. He's a teacher. He's four times platinum, and he's also a true Southern hip hop pioneer. So without further introductions, as you can see, the man himself, I have with me Speech from Arrested Development for the people who don't know, but you should know.
Come on. Thanks, man. Good to be here.
How are you doing today, sir, in these crazy times?
I'm doing great, dude. I'm doing real good. Beautiful weather here in Atlanta, which is where I'm at. And just got finished taking a walk around a beautiful lake and chilling, man. Then got back in the studio doing some music. I'm working on a new Arrested Development album, and it's exciting. So, yeah, feeling good.
Okay. Now, for being somebody who's been inspired by hip hop within his early years too, I was wondering if you can take me back to your times in Tennessee with your grandma. I understand she gave you your first Bible.
She did, yeah. My grandmother was a very religious woman, and just probably one of the most, well, definitely one of the top three most important women in my life. My mother, of course, is probably number one, and then my grandmother, and then now my wife is number one because she's my wife. But in order, my mom, of course, comes first, and my grandmother, she was amazing, and she was she lived in the rural South before she passed away, so we was in the country, like, for times at least, no electricity, well water, like getting water from the well, just a hunter. She was a gardener, getting our food from the fields. So it was a lot of just really beautiful and great times.
I understand too, like she was one of the first people you seen shoot a rifle.
Yep, exactly. She was a very, very good with a rifle and with a pistol too. And we would shoot. She taught me how to shoot when I was a young boy, and we would like she would shoot snakes sometimes if they were about to hurt us. But
oh yeah, I don't blame
we would
her.
shoot cans. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you have to do what you got to do to protect yourself. But yeah, we would shoot cans sometimes and bottles, stuff like this. But she owned chickens and hogs and dogs and all types of different animals too. So we didn't shoot those, but it was just that type of natural setting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was cool. It was very cool.
Well, I understand too, like from an early age too, that you learned the gift of healing at a very early age too. Was your grandmother one of the people to inspire you to actually awaken that gift?
Well, for me, healing was something I did with my mom a lot because she was going through a lot with my father, and they were having fights and really getting into it with each other at a young age. And so I found my mom needing help a lot. And so at the age of, I don't know, probably 8 or 9, 10, I used to be there for her a lot. And just, I guess from that, developed a sense of compassion and wanting to help people. So, yeah.
Wow, you were wise beyond your years at 10. Wow. One of the things that made me really want to reach out to you too, you gave a very motivational speech on your spiritual serial number too. You said that there's a powerful spirit inside of all of us that when it awakens, that it brings gifts of happiness that we never got to experience, and that's true because I got to experience that. But I was wondering, like, did you coin it the name spiritual serial number?
Well, I coined the name Sacred Serial Number.
Okay.
And yeah, Sacred Serial Number. And yeah, I feel like we each have this very sacred, unique stamp on us from the creator of all things. And I feel like it gives us the ability to do something that only we can do, to do something that when we arrive on this earth as a newborn, there's some mission that only you or me can accomplish here. And with that understanding, then it's really hard to just imagine yourself being useless. It's hard to imagine yourself following someone else's plan for your life instead of your own. And you can, in my belief, you can reach your highest level of existence. It doesn't mean you're not going to mess up and make mistakes in your life, but it definitely means that you can do some great things and be very happy with it. So that's what I've been striving to live, and I believe in it. So I talked about that on my TEDx talk. which people can, of course, see at my website, brotherspeech.com.
Yeah, that talk was powerful. I'm so glad that you
Thank
uploaded
you.
it too. Oh, yeah.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Anytime, I'm not gonna lie too. From the very first time I ever heard like one of your interviews too, I kind of went on a rabbit hole because like I just couldn't get enough of like the things that you
Wow.
were talking about too. Like, and it led me to like your documentary, your web
Oh, yes. Yes.
series, and we'll get into all that too. But it's just the way that you present yourself and the way that you drop so much knowledge. I was like, wow, like I have to just have a conversation with this guy.
That's cool, man. Thank you.
Um,
Appreciate
and,
that.
and I know that you must get like the obvious questions, like, oh, how was it at the Grammys or stuff like that. But for somebody who done a lot of research on you, I was curious if you can tell me
Yeah.
about like the makings of your first solo album too. I love that. It was
Yeah.
your self-titled album, Speech. I understand.
Yeah, speech.
I understand that when it shot up to the charts in Japan, if I have my facts straight.
Yes. Yeah. That first album was very special for me for a few reasons. One is, Arrested Development had sort of split apart at this point. We didn't want to record anymore. We had lost the passion for the music as a group. And yet I still had passion personally for music. And so I didn't know what to do. I had never been a solo artist in my whole life. I had groups prior to Arrested Development that, of course, never got really famous. And then I had Arrested Development, which got real famous. So I'd never been solo. And so this was my first time feeling that way and being willing to sort of put myself out there, not just as a leader of a group, but just as a solo artist. And so that was a little nerve-wracking, but I was able to overcome that fear.
Okay.
My son had just been born.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, sorry. I thought you were done. You were cutting down for a second. Keep going.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, my son had just been born right before I did that solo album. And so that was, for me, anyone that has their first child, especially because you've never had one before, it's life-changing. It totally feels like you've entered a new chapter in your life, and indeed you have. And so you just feel like this new sense of purpose, this new sense of trying to do better in your life and trying to really refine whatever you were prior so that you could be better for your child, And so that first album was that for me. But it also was a album of escapism for me in a sense, because the Arrested Development experience was extremely heartbreaking at that time. So we had, as I said, split apart, and we had a lot of internal beef, and that's the last thing I like in my life. Like,
Oh yeah.
I'm the type of person that really likes to keep it real, like zen, real peace. But when things get really out of hand that way, it really wrecks me, not only externally, but deep down, it wrecks me too. So that album was very much about escapism. So songs like Let's Be Hippies, for instance, or If You Was Me, or certain songs like that are very like introspective and just talking about just wanting somebody in a personal space to just spend time with, and none of the sort of fame and all of the sort of complexities that come with groups and all of that stuff. So it's just, so that album is special for me for all of those reasons.
Wow, and it even shows throughout the music too. That album was released in '96, and I took a ride in the car yesterday. I was like, this aged so well. Like I was like, that's what I love about timeless music, about like that too, because it's something like the art of deep listening too, something that you just play front to back too. Now, being how
Oh, that's cool. Thank you.
oh, anytime, like I said, like because you're not only a very powerful creator and spiritual talker too. You are also one hell of an MC as well too. Like not to say like the rest of development has a very unique sound as well too. One of my questions for you too. You say that in when you come to Canada, when you were doing your it was the day that weed became legal in Canada that you came here now. I was curious, was that the very first time that have you been to Canada with your queen?
No, I've been to Canada a lot of times, and I love Canada. I really do. Like every time I go there, I really have a fantastic time with the people there, and I've even been tempted to go there, like move there for a little while, but it never actually came to fruition. I've always sort of stayed in the United States, but I love Canada a lot, and to be honest, that particular trip, we were there doing some sort of like charity work. I mean, we got paid to come there, so it wasn't free,
Yeah.
but we were also raising money. So part of what we were doing was to raise money for a good cause, and so we were there for that, and we happened to be there on that day where everybody was just so like celebratory and excited about the fact that weed was becoming legal, and even they were working on letting people out of jail that were put into jail and prison because of only weed charges, for instance, non-violent charges. So that was cool too. So I was just really excited about that day.
And when I would really hope that they would start something like that for the United States, well, too, because it's just weed.
Yeah, exactly. I agree totally. And if alcohol, which is of course legal, could be legal, then to me weed is the same difference. And to be honest, from my experience being around people that do both, alcohol could be more dangerous. I've seen more people lose lives from that than I ever have from people smoking weed. So I agree.
And
Yeah.
for the people who want to know too, speech rate here has never been drunk or high before.
Never. I've never been drunk, and I've never been high. I always tell people though, it's not because I don't crave it. Like for me personally, especially weed, I think I really would love it if I ever tried it. But I just decided not to try it. I've gotten so far in my life without ever doing it that I just decided, well, I'm good. I'm saying, why start now? So I'm good.
Let me tell you, you're not missing anything.
Drunk. There you go. You know what I mean? So I believe that. At the end of the day, I feel like I probably would like it, but I also feel like I have an addictive personality, and so I probably would just do it too much, and I probably would lose something that I really appreciate about myself right now. So I'm like, I'm good. I have friends. I have friends that do it. I'm around people that do it. In the music industry, that's a very normal thing. So it's something that I've seen enough, but I'm good.
One of the things that I admire about you too, you and your wife have been married for, I believe it's 29 years to in this date. And it really showed me like that real love still exists to this day too. Like not only are you guys partners too, but you guys also help children. Like I understand that you guys started a school called Victory Spot.
Yeah, Victory Spot is a school that my wife and I started about 4.5 years ago. And basically we had a building in where I live, which is Fayetteville, Georgia, that was not being used. I used to have a staff there for Arrested Development and speech productions and all the things we were doing. But as the internet became more popular, we didn't really need to have the staff there. They were able to work from home. So we just had this building sitting there. And my wife said, well, why don't we create a school for the community and have kids come here? And it's a for-profit school, but we really try to pour a lot into the kids for the amount of money that people pay. And we have scholarships for those that are underprivileged and don't have the money. So we're really proud of what we've been able to accomplish. And we just started to do online classes this week because of the whole coronavirus being pandemic and large. It forced us to sort of figure out how we wanted to do it online. So now we're starting to do online classes, which is cool because people from around the world who've been wanting to come and take classes here at the school can now do it via online. So that's cool. And then my wife and I, we've been married for 25 years, but we've been together for 30 years. So we dated for 5 years, and then we finally got married, and we've been married for 25 years. We have 2 kids, a 22-year-old and a 26-year-old. Almost 26, our son. He'll be 26 in October.
Okay. Wow, that's I like how you said, like how you dated too. How did you know? Because like the story about love too, about people falling in love is very inspiring too, and it's like something that you don't really see nowadays too. Because everyone's like, oh, on to the next one too. But like I was wondering, like, how did you know that she was your queen? Did you know?
That's a great question. Yeah, I mean, first of all, I took my time to get to know her. One of the things that I admire about how we got to know each other was our first date. We didn't go out and try to do anything impressive for each other. We just sat and talked. I mean, we actually walked. and talked. We went to a really famous park here in Atlanta called Piedmont Park, which is probably like the Central Park of Atlanta, like New York Central Park. And we just took a walk and just talked a lot. And that was really meaningful as opposed to trying to like spend a lot of money on a dinner or go see that perfect movie or try to do a combination of all those things. It was just more so talking. And what I loved about her was that she was just a very relatable, humble, amazing woman. And at that time especially, I was dating women from all around the world, because being on tour with Arrested Development, you meet women every night. So you have a chance to see a lot of women, and I was meeting women every night, and I love women of all races, nationalities, types. So women was something that deeply intrigued me, but meeting her, it was a very different experience where it wasn't just attraction, which I did have attraction, but it was way more than that. It was a legitimate connection on a friendship level, and yet we were able to also see attraction in each other. And so I think we developed it from there. And like I said, it took I shouldn't say it took 5 years. Well, it did. It took me 5 years to really decide, okay, I want to commit to this woman only, and make a life with her. And so that's what I was willing to do. But I think I was scared for quite a while because of all the choices I had.
Yeah.
But to be honest, there wasn't a lot of great choices. There was just a lot of choices. And so the real choice was just one woman, and she was the one that I ended up marrying.
Wow.
Which I'm very grateful for.
And it really shows like the kind of person you are too, because you can be unmarried out here still, but that really shows like there is true love still out there.
Oh yeah, definitely. There is definitely love, man. No doubt about it. Yeah.
Also, one of the things like about you too, you're a very, very powerful creator too. One of the eye-opening documentaries for me, well, I shouldn't say documentaries, it's a web series that you have too. It's called Hoodwinked. Now, that really opened my eyes too, because being born in '91, I used to always wonder, seeing all this gangsterism on TV, and I was like, how do these people get away from like this? Like, how do these record labels allow this stuff? And then when I watched this web series, it really opened my eyes. I was like, wow. And it really hit me deep, because I was like, I grew up on some of this music, and now when I go back and listen to it, it was like, I see how it affects my own neighborhood as opposed to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
That's something that should be showed in the classroom, should I say.
I appreciate that. I agree with you. And we have shown it to some students in classrooms. And man, I'm telling you, I'm trying to think of the youngest students we played it for was probably 8 or 9. Okay. And let me tell you, they are totally aware of what's going on in the music. They're totally aware that there's a problem. There's something not totally right about what's being presented to them constantly. Yeah. And when they see this miniseries, the N-Word Factory and Hoodwinked, they're really just blown away, and they're totally engaged. Like kids, I do like a lot of visitations to like schools, like elementary schools and middle schools and high schools. And every time I go, the kids love to talk about this subject because they're deeply into rap music. And if they're not personally, they know so many people that are. And they have a lot of thoughts about some of the inconsistencies of the images that are being presented to them, and especially of black people. Like black people are being presented with such degrading images more times than not. So like many of the women are being presented as thoughts and hoes and strippers and prostitutes, and then many of the men are being presented as violent and gangsters and willing to shoot somebody in the drop of a dime, and pimps and all types of this stuff. And so they see this sort of assault on their own people, and they also look around at their people and are like, well, that's not everybody I know. Like everybody I know is not trying to be a killer or a gangster. So they realize that there's this disparity, and they're really interested in documentaries about that. So it goes over very well with schools.
Wow, I'm so glad to hear that too. That you played it for too, and they're really engaged in it too, because those children are
Very
the
engaged.
future too.
Yes, they're our future. And I try to tell people that everywhere I go, that it's so important to be able to present a different reality to these children, because the children haven't yet formed their opinions on what this world is. And what we're doing is presenting to them what the world is. So we have an opportunity to change a lot of the cycles of poverty, the cycles of dysfunction that are happening in so many communities. I mean, it's overwhelming how many places around the world, not just in, who have deep levels of dysfunction, deep levels of deterioration and corrosion in their communities. And so there's a need to strive to change the pattern of behavior, because it's one thing for one generation to have that dysfunction, but it's a whole nother thing to teach it to a whole new generation that really has a clean slate. These children have a totally clear board to write on, or write their stories on. And we have a choice as adults to help them to understand things better than what we understood them, and raise them to another level.
Wow.
And that's what I strive to do with this documentary.
That really makes you an amazing human being too, and what makes you even better too is you do it for your passion. Because I see in some ways like I wasn't paid to do this enough, and like that. This is like more of a passion project for you. You said
Definitely, definitely. Well, yeah, I appreciate you noticing that, because a lot of people are so stuck in the frame of mind that everything everybody should do is to make that bag, is to make a bag, make some money, and I definitely need to make money just like you and everyone else. But there's so many things that I do because of what I talked about with Sacred Serial Number. I feel like I'm I was I was planted with these types of passions, and so I want to bring it to the world. And I think that you and so many, well, everybody else really has something that they were planted and in their hearts of some type of passion, and they need to bring that to the world. So yeah.
wow. I'm really glad that's one of your passions too, because you could choose to do so much other things in this world too, but you chose to spread the gift of knowledge that we rarely see nowadays.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate that. It definitely is encouraging, dude, because sometimes it's very discouraging
Yeah.
when you're out here and you do things that you know is a service to others, like you're not trying to do it to make money, and then people can sometimes come against you real hard, you know.
Yeah.
And even for that special, the mini documentary, the docu series that we're referring to, I got a lot of heat on my Instagram for some of the things that I talk about. So it's really cool when people are encouraging and like, yeah, I see the good that you're striving to do, and that's a good thing. I accept it. Thanks.
Um, are we gonna get part three anytime soon? Because I won't lie, I searched the web before I found out it was even out.
Yeah.
I was like, I have to find part three to this.
Yeah. Thank you. I work with a great guy, an incredible director named Jason Orr, and he's an amazing guy. And we have a team of people that we use to create that mini series. And to be honest, because of the coronavirus, but even before that, because of certain things that were happening, it's this episode 3 has been so hard to finish, but we're almost there. So I think it should be ready by I'm going to say by the end of this month or by the beginning of April.
Oh wow! Okay. So it's very soon.
Yeah.
Which also
Very soon.
Which also led me to once I couldn't find part three, which led me to your 16 Bars documentary too. That was powerful too, and I looked on Tidal after watching that documentary, and there was the soundtrack on there too. I was like, wow. So for the people who've never seen 16 Bars too, it's available on Amazon, iTunes for purchase as well too. For a documentary like this too, I understand it won multiple awards too. Do you plan on putting this on like a platform like a Netflix or even on your website for the people to be informed of this?
Yeah, definitely. So right now people can stream it. Like you said, you can go to Amazon, you can go to Vudu, you can go to iTunes, Google Play, but you have to rent it. So you can get it for free on Netflix, of course, by having being a subscriber to Netflix soon. We haven't put it on Netflix just yet because we've been trying to, make some type of money from all the money we put into it, trying to make some of that back by having people rent it and stuff like that. And then we'll put it on Netflix next. So it should be there soon. And by then, I really would love for everybody to see it. It's a full documentary, whereas the N-Word Factory, the Hoodwinked mini doc series is like 10 minutes each installment. This is a full documentary. It's an hour and 30 minutes. So it's a really special piece where I go into a jail and I work with 4 inmates in that jail on music, and I document their lives, not just in the jail, but some of them got released while we were filming, and I document their life, their family's life. It's an amazing documentary. I think it gives people a really sobering look at what's going on in the prison system, and so yeah, I definitely think people would enjoy it. People have been really excited about the movie, and like you said, it won a number of awards already.
I was curious if you understand the impact that you had on those 4 men's lives after this documentary.
I do know that there's been some impact, like Garland, for instance, one of the members in this movie. He was able to get married because of this project to the woman of his dreams, and she's been sticking by him for many years. When people see the movie, they'll know who I'm talking about. Teddy has been able to get sober and was able to go through a very expensive, over $40,000 drug treatment program, which was solely because of this movie. Anthony was able to get help with some things that he's been going through because of this movie, and Devontae was able, I just saw him recently, he was able to get some really special perks because of the fact that he was in this movie. So it's exciting, yeah, to see people's willingness to help these guys because they saw the movie.
Wow. With you actually going into the prison system too, did you have like second guesses of like, I don't know if I want to go in there, or you're like, you know what? What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I've been in a prison before, not as an inmate, but just as a visitor. And it's still nerve-wracking because you don't know who you're going to meet. Yeah. You don't know how thorough the security is going to be. And you know that there's some real killers in there. I mean, there's some incredible men in there who have not done any violent crimes. And then there's some people in there that's done some very violent crimes. And the worst that can happen is sort of hard to imagine because anything can happen. But I was so blessed. I went in there. I overcame the fears that I had and the doubts that I had, and decided to go in, and everything turned out incredibly well, like way more than what I've expected. So I was really grateful to meet the men and women that I met, the staff that I met, the sheriff that allowed me to come in there, and his assistant, Sarah Scarborough, who's become close friends with me, and same with the sheriff. So it's been a really enlightening time for me, like very, very enlightening.
Wow, okay. And like I like how you said like you have to come over fears instead of just saying I just went in there with like no fear at all too, because I won't lie, I'll be scared as hell going in the prison system.
Yeah. It was something that I definitely had to overcome. I mean, it was there, yeah. I was definitely afraid. Like, I mean, I didn't go around telling everybody, but I knew that in my heart I was a little like, I don't know what's exactly going to happen right now. You know what I mean? And like I said, and I take no pride in being the kind of guy that likes to go to prison, like, meaning being a prisoner. Like some people I know in the hip hop game, they're proud to say they went to prison, or some others that I know want to go to prison because they want to sort of have that stripe on their credit. You know, like, okay, yeah, I'm hard. Look at what I've done and all of this. I'm not that guy. Like, I don't feel like there's any pride in being in prison, and most people I know agree with that, but there's these few people that I just have a different way of looking at it, and they sort of want that as sort of a credibility mark for them, and I'm not into that.
Oh, I don't blame you at all, too. And you even touched on that in the web series, too, Hoodwinked.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Now, for somebody who's been, I like to say, too, who's been a part of a revolutionary movie, too, because you are a part of this movie, too. I seen this movie when I was 7 or 8, and I recently rewatched it as an adult. I was like, Wow, this movie really hit me a different way than I expect, and I remember that you actually had the recording for Revolution for the movie Malcolm
Mhm.
X.
Yeah, that was one of my most proud moments. I mean, I've always been a fan of Spike Lee, and I wrote Spike Lee a letter years ago, before Arrested Development got famous, and I asked him if I could do some music on some of his movies, and he never responded, and I don't blame him. He didn't know who I was, and for me to get a call from Spike Lee later in my life, like once Arrested Development had made some noise, and he was like, "Yo, can we meet up at your show tonight in New York?" And we were at this club called Sweet Jane's, beautiful club, small and packed, sold out, sweaty, wild, and opening up for us was the legendary Last Poets, who are just
Oh
absolutely
wow.
amazing. And it was a great night. And Spike Lee came back to the dressing room. It was like, "Hey, speech," and just started talking to me about this idea. And I was like, "Yo, done. Consider it done. Whatever you need." Now, I will say it was a very trippy way to come into working with Spike, because the movie that he had just done a minute ago was Do the Right Thing, and to me, Public Enemy Spike the Power was one of the best hip hop soundtrack songs ever in history of hip hop. So to try to come up and match that, or even try to come near that, was tough. And I don't think we matched it, but I definitely think we did our best, and we laid down something that is definitely memorable, and I'm proud of the track we did.
Are you a big believer in Destiny speech?
I am. Yeah, I don't talk about it often, but I do believe in it. And I think deep in my heart, I do feel that there's certain things that's destined to happen for me and for others and stuff. So yeah, I do. I think I do believe in it.
I'm gonna say that whole story that you just shared with me right there, that was destiny for all that to happen.
You're right. You're right.
Somebody who actually showed me my destiny too. I was curious on how you met him. It's somebody who I look up to very much, and every time he talks, I listen. And I never would have thought that he would ask me to be a part of his movement. So when every time I Google him, your name kept coming up too as well. So I was curious on how you ever met Mark Suggs.
Who is it?
Mark Suggs, MOK Suggs. He used to go by Defocus.
Oh my gosh! Yeah. You know what's funny? I never knew how to pronounce his name since he's changed it. So I always say Mark X, and I'm like, Mark Sucks. So it's Mark Sucks.
Yes, sir.
Wow. You know what? That dude is. I love that dude, man. He's a talented guy. Um, just really special. I tell you what I like about him is that he is a lover of hip hop music, and he's a lover of the art of hip hop, and he does it for the heart. It's totally for the art of it. I'm not saying he doesn't need to make money and that he doesn't try to make money. Of course, he tries to make money, but I love people like that. And I met him when he was defocused through a brother named Ko that I know as well, and he made a beat for me that he wanted me to rap on, and it was about 6 years ago or so, and I rapped on it. I sent it back to him, but I charged him for it. And I was like, "Yo, I need this, X amount of money to do this." And he didn't have the money, so we just sat on the beat and we didn't do anything with it. So about 5, 6 years later, I had that beat the whole time, because I was like, that beat is one of the best hip hop beats I've ever heard. And I started writing to it all over again, because I felt like the rhymes I had written 6 years ago was sort of not what I wanted to say anymore. And I was like, wrote a whole nother joint to it, and I showed it to him. And I said, "Yo, can I use this beat on this solo project I'm doing called Expansion?" And he said, "Yo, this is fire." He loved it. And so we went ahead and, put that joint on the first. It's going to be actually the first single on my next solo record
Oh,
called
wow.
Expansion. And it's called Just Too Cold, and it's fire. I mean, it's so nice. And yeah, he's hot. He's hot.
Yes, sir. He's probably the most documented artist on my show. So I had to ask him how you met him.
That's cool. That's real cool. Yeah, he's a great dude.
Yeah.
Great dude.
Yes, sir. And for the people who actually want to go listen to the general now, you can just tap into all the links below. And I'm really excited to hear what you guys have coming for this too, knowing the history of this now.
No doubt, man. Yeah, it's a great track. Just Too Cold, and it's gonna be dropped real soon. We just shot a video for it too. He's in the video. Yeah.
Oh yeah, okay, okay.
Yep. Yep.
Especially I love about when you give your world views too. You once said a quote that deeply moved me by saying, "I do what I can with the people around me." Now, where did you hear that quote?
That's a little South African boy. I think he's like 7 or 8 years old. Said that, and I always kept that. Like ever since I heard it, it became the mantra of my life. Like, do what you can with what you have, affecting the people around you. To me, that's like if everybody did that, we're good. This whole world is good because a lot of people feel like they got to do something to affect the whole world. And to be honest, any one person never does that. What instead you could do is affect the people around you with what you have. And then over time, because of other people believing in what you said as well, you can possibly change the world. But start with what you have and do what you can and with the people around you. And that little boy said that, man. It's from the mouth of babes, as the Bible says. It's so moving, and yeah, it's important.
It really is too. And you said that too, because you hear certain things in life that stick with you throughout the rest of your life now too. I was like, wow, I'm gonna tell my kids that because it just like it's something that just kind of stuck with me throughout the past couple of months.
Yeah, man, that's a special quote right there.
It is. It is. With you being always on tour, now I understand you're very in demand of tour. Before the whole coronavirus happened, now I was wondering if you can take me back to your performance at the Delicious Festival in South Africa.
Oh my gosh, that was one of my. It's funny, like being in South Africa at that point. My wife and I really made a decision we want to move there, and we were in Johannesburg. We fall in love with the people, we've fallen in love with the place, and it's still one of our destination, hopes. And the Delicious Festival was incredible. It was De La Soul on the lineup. Gosh, I'm forgetting his name right now, but an incredible house singer, Lisa Fisher on vocals. It was just an incredible lineup, and it's funny because I didn't even like our actual performance that night that we performed, but everyone else loved it. Macy Gray was on the tour as well. Everyone else loved that show, and the pictures that were shot, because it started pouring rain during our show.
Oh.
And we took some photographers took pictures of us that night, and it's by far the most incredible pictures that Arrested Development has ever had taken of us in all of our years. Is just the most powerful pictures, and it made me change my mind about that night. I just realized that even though I didn't like the show personally, there's some things in life that you have to sort of witness from your outer body in order to understand the power of what you just did. And that's what happened with that particular gig. Like, it was amazing being there. The people were so giving. It was pouring rain, and the people stayed in the rain. And one of the things I learned from the people in South Africa, they said that when it rains during a show or a celebration, that's actually a signal that God or the Creator is with you, and that it's a spiritual and meaningful event that God himself has sort of put his hands on, in a sense. And so I didn't know that. So I was thinking of it as a bad thing, but they thought of it as a great thing, and they really meant that, and that meant a lot to me. And Macy Gray, right after the show, I was probably in my worst mood. I was so down, so depressed because I didn't like the show. And Macy Gray, she didn't even know I was in that position, but I was just chilling, and Macy Gray surprised me. She told me to come upstairs to our dressing room. We went up to the I didn't want to go, so I told my wife, I was like, never mind, I'm good. I'll talk to her later. And she insisted. I was like, what is she insisting for? And I went upstairs, and as a surprise to me that night, she had a tribe of African dancers and singers sing these songs for me and the group. And it made me break down in tears. I just lost it. I just totally lost it. I was so moved. And again, it felt like it's the heavens, because I was so depressed just a minute ago. And then when this happened, no more depression. totally happy, totally fired up, and I was just grateful for the entire trip. It was one of the most magical trips ever. And then the very next morning, we went to a orphanage in the middle of Johannesburg, and it was one of the most moving times. In fact, it was us. It was Pasta News from De La. It was the Jackson Five was at this show as well.
Oh wow!
And so it was Randy from the Jackson Five, Randy Jackson, and maybe a couple others that were there with us, and it was just amazing. So yeah, South Africa, the Delicious Festival will always be one of my favorite times.
Wow, just to hear that story too about like the story about the rain and like the hand.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a chill.
Yeah.
That would send chills down anyone's spine too.
Yeah, it was a special time, very special time. Yo, my assistant Mike is telling me that I got an interview at 3:45.
Oh, I got one more question and then we'll wrap it up if that's okay.
Cool.
It's actually the last quote. We went through all the questions I have written down, so it's actually perfect timing too. So the reason why I asked this question is because that we're all unique individuals, and no individual can ever answer this question the same. And there could be somebody who really looks up to you that may need to hear this. So, if that being said, do you have any words for somebody in a dark place trying to see the light?
Oh my gosh, yes. The thing that I would say is believe that there is going to be light. Like, the darkness doesn't last forever. There's a point where you're going to see things 100% different than what you're presently seeing it. And that usually it's not that things on the outside have to change so much. It's usually the way you see things changes. And you start to allow yourself to free yourself from the situation you're in right now. So whether it's if you are, in a dark place because of your own inner thoughts, you can start to change those thoughts one by one. Start to compare what's really true and what you think is true. Because a lot of times the real truth is way more encouraging than the things you just think are true. So you have to really compare the two and start to come out of that darkness. And if it's somebody that's keeping you in darkness, I want to give people the encouragement and the power, the strength to realize that you do not deserve to stay in a place of darkness, that you are divine, that you are important to this world, and your purpose is far more meaningful than being underneath the darkness of somebody else. You deserve to be out there doing your life and living your best life. So yeah, I want to encourage people to definitely get out of that state and start to make the moves towards getting out of it.
Wow, I always knew you would give a motivational answer. Now I never expected something like that.
Yeah, that's what I feel.
So with that being said now too, this is a very humble and amazing soul who does a lot for this world and definitely impacts the world with his creativity too. So I just want to let you know, Speech, that from people who were born in 91, we definitely appreciate you, my guy. We definitely appreciate everything you do. Is there anything you like to plug in before I let you go?
Yeah, brotherspeech.com. Go to my website and sign the mailing list. And takes you 30 seconds, and we'll be sure to get you updated on everything that's about to drop, including Hoodwinked Part 3 and new music expansion and a new Arrested Development album that I'm actually working on right now. So, yeah.
We definitely can't wait. With that being said, this is another classic interview with a very humble and amazing soul, Speech from Arrested Development. We appreciate you, Kim.
Thank you.